Honorable Ambassador Daniel Asama, if he's still around.
Indeed, I am excited about the fact that yesterday was seamless and it was amazing that we accept this proposal. However, I'm also worried and concerned about the line item in budget, especially the defense. The 2.4 trillion approximated for defense piqued my interest. I came from an agrarian and yet cosmopolitan constituency. Our people do farming as one of the most prosperous things in their lives. Of late, Mr. Speaker, we know a lot of them have been displaced. Farming had become difficult, and hence food insecurity is endemic. I will call, as I lend my voice in support of this appropriation, that issues
Honorable Dennis Abo. Honorable Dennis Abo.
Keenly. Implementation of this line item is keen for me, and I know for Nigeria entirely. I want to call on the executive to ensure the implementation of this line item, and us as parliamentarians to be steadfast in our oversight and to make sure that these figures are being put into work so as to have good food security and at the same time bless our people with their lands back, because a lot of them are displaced and they are not able to do the function of producing food for the nation. I so support and I submit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, we'll all agree with me that as at yesterday when Mr. President came here, the 2024 budget, the renewed hope, our hopes were renewed as at yesterday. Because, yes, I'm making a speech, please, my honorable members. Now he has brought up a new budget to commensurate and to continue from where he stopped with our renewed hope. He has brought a budget of restoration, a budget that is aiming at the security of the nation and also the economic stability of the nation. We all know that when a place is secured, the economy can grow. We all know that when a place is secured, there can be flourishment in the town and on the land. So, with this, I want to stick to what all my other colleagues have spoken about other figures about the defense. Defense being 4.91 trillion, not 2.9 as my colleague earlier on said, to repeat it, the defense budget. So, and I also want to commend the President on the budget that is concentrating more on the youths. All the youth funds in the budget have been kept intact. The National Youth, the Youth Empowerment Fund, 25 billion is there, kept intact. The loan, the student loan, and also the investment loan fund, also NEL fund, and everything that's targeted at empowering the youth of this nation. I also urge my colleague to please support this bill because of this intrinsic youth empowerment that is intricated in this bill. So I urge my colleagues to please support it, and I so move. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, what you have seen yesterday is a clear demonstration of your leadership style in this National Assembly. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I deemed it necessary to contribute immensely on the 2025 budget. I want to discuss on two areas on the 2025 budget. Though enough or a lot has been said about one of the areas, that is the security aspect, whereby 4.9 trillion naira has been allocated.
Honorable Bashir Barningwari, your attention is needed by the Deputy Speaker.
In order to tackle the security.
Your attention is needed by the Deputy Speaker.
Why I say I want to speak on this, Mr. Speaker, is because I came from the volatile area, the area that is characterized and extracted by the banditry and other security architecture in this country. Because when you talk of Northwest, particularly Sokoto State, and in Sokoto, in my local government, which border with Niger Republic, that is Ilela, we are always having a sleepless night People will not go into the farming. People are not allowed to do everything socially and economically. So in this respect, I'm the one to be happy on the allocation made to the area of defense in this country.
A lot has been said about this very beautiful budget presentation yesterday by Mr. President. And of course, given the time that is allotted, I will only just say that the budget clearly demonstrates audacity of leadership by Mr. President, the audacity of courage, boldness, and visionary leadership. And that, I want to join my colleagues in thanking Mr. President and the entire leadership of the National Assembly for the way the program went yesterday. But from all available indications and projections, definitely Nigerian economy has reached a point of inflection, as economists will say. At what speed and at what rate will it begin to rise is in the hand of all of us, the government and the governed. How much level of patriotism, how much level of trust, and how much do we put into ensuring that we have the nation that we have? I think that is what we need to do, such that we will be able to realize all the good benefits that has been mentioned in this budget. There have been talks about the budgets being too courageous and all of that, or the numbers too big. But I think that when we look at where we are as a nation and what we are capable of doing, I have no doubt in my mind that every bit of what was said yesterday can be achieved if we do all that we need to do.
Round up, please.
But I need to just mention the investment in infrastructure, and that has also been mentioned here today. Someone even described it as an L-shaped, line. But I can say that there are so much of, a strategic investment
Amos
all
Governor
over the
Magaji,
country.
you are distracting Chairman House
on-
Committee on Appropriation.
On behalf of the people of Yewa North Imekwa for Federal Constituency, I want to specially thank Mr. President for the commencement of work on the Ilara-Ilashe Road. That is a major 107-kilometer road that borders Benin Republic, and which is going to be a major boost to the agri
Chief Whip, are you sitting in your
development
job?
that this
Are you
state
sit doing the timekeeping?
that this
Round up,
budget-
please. Please round up, Honorable.
that this budget seeks to pursue. Once again, I join on behalf of the people of my constituency in
Honorable Shadipe,
supporting
you are distracting
that
a senior
this budget
legislator.
should be read for the second time. Thank you very much.
It's Honorable Nemero Dekeri.
Let me use this opportunity to commend Mr. President and his team for the budget of restoration that was presented before these hallowed chambers yesterday. I join members of these hallowed chambers to salute his courage. At the same time, I want to especially thank the leadership of the House for their wonderful submission during the presentation yesterday. Mr. Speaker, I want to say without doubt that the budget presented yesterday was a budget of big dreams. Every achievement, every landmark achievement being celebrated all over the world today were conceived and dreamed by men and women who dreamt big. And it do come with doubts, just like we are having today. But I can assure you, with our shared commitments, with our dedication and patriotism, with the meticulous allocation of the available resources by Mr. President, our big dreams is achievable.
Thank you very much. The microphone will be off when you are speaking, but while you are speaking, I would like you to be watching. If it turns red, just know that your 2 minutes is up. because we are so many, and we have to give little time to everybody. Carried? Good. So just be, even if the chief whip is not shouting your name and disturbing what you're saying, just be watching the mic, because we are watching the time. Once it's 2 minutes, it will go red. That way to guide you. So we'll have Olumido Shoba speak, and following him is Engineer Sani Bala, and after him will be Honorable Hassan Folada. It's just for you to gather your thoughts before you are called up. So the next person is Olumide, followed by Engineer Sanis Bala, and then after that, Hassan Folada. Yusuf Gadi has already spoken. And then after Folada will be Honorable Satomi Ahmed. So gather your thoughts.
Olumide Oshoba is not around, sir.
All right. So let's now call Honorable Sani Bala.
Mr. Speaker, I want to dwell on two national issues that has to do, number one, with issue of power, infrastructure, security. It can be recalled that just some few weeks ago, this House resolved on a motion that has to do with the security of the power infrastructure in the country. So I will want to dwell on the issue of the transmission lines that have been prone to incessant attacks by vandalists. It can be recalled that the government can afford to sell the generation part of the power and the distribution, but due to the importance of the security attached to transmission lines, nowhere in the world do you see the government selling or privatizing the transmission sector. So I will want to, call on us to see well the reason behind putting security on the power infrastructure, especially as it concerns transmission line, and the need for us to also traverse the country in a loop system where you have problem, you can isolate and pit the other section of the country as required. Just recently, the northern part of the country was plunged into incessant darkness as a result of the vandalism of the power sector. And this is because we are not prepared to make the system to be loop across the country, where you will have some section, very minor section of the country being isolated because of its problem peculiar to it. So I will want to advise that we should see reason to put in to put in money adequate for the transmission sector in the country. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I also want to speak on the issue of food security. There was a motion resolved by this House as I moved it some months ago on the issue of food security, where you have all our borders open and our maize, corn, millets, everything has been taken out of the country without proper governance.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, Budget 2025 is premised on certain principles, which I consider, some of which I consider to be really problematic. First of all, the exchange rate of 1,400 naira to the dollar is problematic because the price of dollar at the private market is 1,700 or 1,650. Now, this will encourage currency speculation, and it will encourage currency speculation, and we don't have the enough dollars to support our balance of payment problems. So I think we should jack up the exchange rate to a more realistic figure. Secondly, the price of crude per barrel, $75, is also problematic. Currently, crude is selling 72, 73. If by the next 2 weeks, the price of crude is not up to 75, we are starting a very good, a bad note. We are starting with a deficit. So this one is also problematic. Thirdly, dedicating 30% of the budget to debt servicing is also problematic. It's too much, it should be reduced. Fourthly, Mr. Speaker, the issue of deficit, 13 trillion naira deficit is too much. The MTEF that we approved projected revenue of over 64 trillion. So why deficit budget? So we should also
in approving this budget, we should do away with this 13 trillion deficit. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the United Nations benchmark for all nations as regards budgeting for education is 20%. 26%. 26%. Now, we just dedicated 3.5 trillion to education, less than 6%. I think we need to do more. Thank you.
Sticking to time. That's very impressive. The next to speak is Honorable Satomi Ahmed. That will be followed by Honorable Enoa Gava. And then Honorable Philip Abase will be following suit.
I rise, Mr. Speaker, while thanking you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President has submitted the budget yesterday, which the budget is an indication of Mr. President's recognition of the pressing issues across the country. Mr. Speaker, it's very commendable for Mr. President particularly to put in a huge budget of about I'm talking of security, about 4.2 to the defense sector. But Mr. Speaker, as chairman of the National Security, I'm so worried looking at the indices and statistics available comparing not other continent countries, but African countries. Egypt, compared to their population, they have a budget of about 7.8 billion in their defense, with a reserves army of 800,000, managing over 1,000 aircraft. Algeria with 6.8 billion, South Africa with 3.6 billion. In our country of banditry, insecurity, of Boko Haram, agitation of separationists in the southeast, and many more. So therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want us to critically, this time around, to look at the budget of the security and let it be different, looking at considering the contemporary challenges of cyber security, cyber crime. So also emphasis must be given to non-kinetic solution. We have been passing budget in this chamber since 8 assembly to 9 assembly, huge to the defense sector. But let's not repeat what we have been doing. This time around, let's give emphasis to non-kinetic solutions, technology of cyber security, because depending about cyberspace is very important and very significant to the nation. If we can secure our cyberspace, our cyber gadgets, definitely Nigeria will see improvement not only in physical security, but including economic securities. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I want to put in my voice to the budget of the Northeast Development Commission, one of the largest in terms of area, about 2,876 kilometers, that's 107 square kilometers, having about 30% population. But we are the least in having only 290 billion earmarked for the Northeast Development Commission. This is so worrisome compared to some of the new development commissions that have just been mentioned. We have a lot of pending issues going on. The post-insurgency crisis is requiring huge funding that even the crisis period. So therefore, I also want us to look at it. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I want to commend my senior colleague, Honorable Pulata, for digressing into the real budget of about looking, the president says that 38 or 34 billion has to come from revenue. And these oil revenues from the MTF we have seen. It's good if we will have a detail of what actually the petroleum sector will contribute and what the tax revenue will contribute. This will give us a guideline even if we have a deficit in terms of exchange rates, lower in production within which. But with the commitment that Mr. President has given to us, with the courage and enthusiastic words that he has shown to the National Assembly by saying that inflation will come down from 34% to 15%, exchange rate will drop, and inshallah, this is an optimistic promises, Mr. President. And last, Mr. Speaker, 1 minute, that we must strengthen our oversight. This time around, the game will not be as usual. Because this is the only way we can help Mr. President to achieve the full implementation of.
Looking at the content or the quantum of the budget of 4.97 trillion presented before us yesterday by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was the leader of APC before becoming the president. Mr. Speaker, currently the Petroleum Minister is equally the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And Mr. Speaker, looking at the budget of Ministry of Petroleum, I have seen a very negligible amount of 46 billion. If you could remember, Mr. Speaker, on the 22nd November 2022, when the former President Muhammadu Buhari and the current President, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, kickstart and commissioned the exploration on 22nd November 2022 of Kolmani oil well in Gombe and Bauchi State. Mr. Speaker, let me quote the President of Nigeria currently. He was the leader of APC, and he made a commitment as regards the exploration of Kolmani oil in Gombe Bauchi axis. He promised us that he will definitely continue with that project. But as I'm talking to you, looking at the budget of the ministry, which is equally the minister, that promise is about to decline, because the oil exploration, as I'm talking to you, nothing significant is going on there. Most of the companies are even parking out of that place. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this budget must have to look inward and pay attention to that project of Kolmani oil exploration. Mr. Speaker, it's very important to the economy of this country. At that same period, the President promised the Mombila hydroelectric power project if he becomes president. Thank God he is now president for over 1 year. Nothing is happening there. He equally promised us of the recharging of Lake Chad Basin. Nothing is happening when the president is approaching his second year. So I'm reiterating on behalf of the entire people of North East Geopolitical Zone that these 3 key areas should be accommodated in the budget so that the promises made by APC government under both President Buhari and President Tinubu will be fulfilled. The confidence we have on them will continue.
The next to speak will be Philip Bassett, followed by Attorney Matthew Nwogu, and then Osman Garoa, and that will be followed by Honorable Dr. Zainab Gimba. So,
Philip Abese is not around.
Abase is not around, so we'll yield the floor to Matthew Nwogu.
My own, Mr. Speaker, is an observation from the proposal submitted by Mr. President, specifically on the budgetary allocation of Ministry of Power 10 billion, Mr. Speaker, with the current challenges of infrastructure in the power sector, Mr. Speaker, I think the 10 billion did not speak enough.
10 billion?
10 billion, yes, sir.
Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, I would like to mention that it is my personal opinion that the revenue projection of the budget versus the reality on ground, if I look at that, I feel that it is the government is overly optimistic, because looking at the price hike in petroleum and issues of taxation and the rest, I think that projection to me is overly ambitious and optimistic. And equally, the debt servicing, when we look at the rising debt, the amount allocated for the debt servicing, Mr. Speaker, equally might be at the detriment of other infrastructural developments we have, especially in critical sectors like health, education, and agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also mention that the social welfare and poverty alleviation aspect of the budget, to me, it doesn't adequately address the poverty reduction and social welfare programs, looking at the large population we have in the country, especially programs targeting job creation, wealth creation, and then social safety net and rural developments are not adequately addressed. Mr. Speaker, most importantly, the infrastructural development budget allocation for infrastructure is inefficient, and this may prevent sustainable development. If you look at it, especially in terms of road, power, and other infrastructural development, I want to give a very quick example of my own constituency, the in Kalabalge Federal Constituency, the whole of the local government, Mr. Speaker, due to lack of road. In fact, I should commend the state government for always coming up with interim measures at all times, but for almost 6 to 7 months or sometimes 9 months, this local government will be cut off from the rest of Nigeria. I think this and over the years, we have been approving budgets year in, out, and I have always been advocating for a road there, and this kind of infrastructures might not only bring about sustainable development, but even in terms of security, it might also bring a lot of improvement in that aspect. Mr. Speaker, I would like you to note that Kalabalge for now have only donkey as their means of transportation, because even at that, in the past 2 or 3 months, they only use jerry cans to be on the water to come to Cameroon and get food for themselves. Mr. Speaker, these sort of issues should be included and should be considered as priorities in the budget, because and I'm sure also those who are supposed to look at the issues in the budgets are here, and I think this is one of the issues I would like to mention. And Mr. Speaker, lastly, even in terms of education and healthcare, the reality is that they are underfunded, and with this kind of insufficient investment in these sectors, it may lead to inadequate services for the population. Mr. Speaker.
Round up, round up.
Yeah, 2 minutes is
At the risk of sounding selfish.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
At the risk of sounding selfish, you should round up, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for being generous to the gender.
You are trying to bribe the.
Thank you for your generosity of time, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, I would like to speak about inflation and economic stability. And Mr. Speaker, given the current inflation rate, 2025 budget may, this is my opinion, effectively fail to address the price hikes, unemployment, and the cost of living. And if the purchasing power of the the population has been reduced, I think it is going to be, we are going to be in more crisis than we are. Therefore, I personally call for policies that focus on stabilizing the economy, as much as for us to look at those that are at the grassroots. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Whilst commenting on the budget, I want us to look at some things, particularly the outgoing year, as a turbulent year globally. And in this regard, we have to believe us to put a strategy to ensure that budget performance in the year 2025 becomes a reality. In this regard, we need all stakeholders to support the implementation of this budget beyond the executive. Nigeria cannot operate as an island. This budget is premised on a lot of factors. We have to be strategic, particularly in an international engagement. We look at the gains and the losses in the Gulf War areas, and this coming year, the leadership of the House really has to do a lot and use the parliamentary instruments to prevent threats to the successful implementation of this budget. This is my submission. Thank you.
If you all listen to Mr. President, you will recall his opening remark yesterday that the basis of his coming here was the grand norm, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to speak legislatively because the submission, Mr. President, is from the executive perspectives. Mr. Speaker, this budget is grossly inadequate. I say so because we need to address our minds to our status.
Did you say grossly inadequate?
Grossly inadequate.
That is, it's not enough.
It's not enough. We are talking about 23 billion dollars budget, which is just the cost of a project that links Nigeria to Senegal to Morocco, a pipeline. It's just one item to procure a project. It is grossly inadequate. I say so, Mr. Speaker, when you could consider Section 18 of our Public Procurement Act 2007, which bordered on needs assessment. Mr. Speaker, I will take you to Foreign Affairs, the committee I chair. Practical consideration of the needs assessment of missions of the headquarters of the agencies under Foreign Affairs, Mr. Speaker, is more than 2 trillion naira. And we are giving a patronage sum of 286 billion naira. Our missions are in courts in various nations.
Are you advocating for
Mr. Speaker, so I want to urge
deficit budgeting?
No, Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of leakages in the land. If we had that straightly to Section 162 of the Constitution, you will see that we still have a lot of revenue that are yet to be collected. I don't have any problem with deficit financing. What is important is what are you doing with it? In our private lives, we take mortgages.
I wanted to say that again.
Sir,
you don't have problem with deficit?
I believe in deficit. I believe in borrowing.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Speaker, I came from organized private sector. And I've borrowed money in the past, and I've used it judiciously. And my children can see what I've done with it. So what is important, Mr. Speaker, is that when we borrow money, what are we doing with the money? Are we doing parties with it? Are we taking teas and conferences and seminars? Or we are embarking on infrastructural development? That generation unborn will come and say, yeah, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, you've done well. So, Mr. Speaker, the point I'm making here is this. I've listened to the opinions, to the comments, observation by colleagues. And the beauty of democracy, Mr. Speaker, is that our rules, our constitution, has given us the room to tinker, to look at the submission of Mr. President and do justice to it. So the Faleke-led committee finance, they need to really wear their thinking cap and look for all the money. We have the money. We have to do our work and block all the leakages, Mr. Speaker. Even in the tax arena, Mr. Speaker, we have not even collected the taxes. There are a lot of tax gaps. Mr. Speaker, if you look at that, our fiscal policies, look at Federal Ministry of Industry, look at capital allowances. A lot of people are manipulating our laws at our own detriment. So this parliament has a job to do. There is a motion, there's a referral, going to report itself to be submitted to you, Mr. Speaker, to this House. It's about tax evasion. It's about tax evasion. A lot of companies, private sector, organized private sector, and while I agreed that it is the private sector that feeds the government, that feeds the nation, and that we should provide an enabling environment for them to thrive, to work, but at the same time, They should not harm us.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's too little for our population. It's too little for the needs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's just a budget for one single project that links Nigeria through the pipeline to Morocco and all that. Well, appropriation, you are listening. This is a proposal from the executive. And why we are here as a parliament is to look at the proposal to see if they are fit for purpose, if there are needs for adjustment. That is the purpose of this debate. Please, it's like not everybody is going to speak because we need to go into Committee of Supply to look at it. A lot of things have been generated. You can put some of these ideas down and then we'll pass it to the Appropriation Committee. I'll just take a few more. The list is still much. If we go through all these lists, we will not be able to meet up, and that's the truth.
My own is kind of observation on the proposed budget. The proposed budget is extremely very ambitious, and revenue target for the year is just 34 trillion rather, and we have a deficit of almost 15 trillion. But I think the executive should also give the revenue generating organization an ambitious target, because most of them this year, during the MTF appearance, they all surpassed the target. And it's not ideal for an agency to surpass target. It makes them lazy, because they surpass target at the third quarter of the year. So I think we should also give them a very ambitious target for the budget, so that will reduce our borrowing plan.
Honorable Kelechi Nwogu, 1 minute.
Right, Honorable Speaker, my colleagues, let me use the opportunity to thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, by extension, the Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Production, for making provision for poverty reduction, livestock production, and food security in this 2025 budget. Right, Honorable Speaker, my distinguished colleagues, you will all agree with me that, yes, we've talked about the security agency, the provisions that have been made for them in this budget. But, right, Honorable Speaker, no matter the amount of the military, no matter the amount of the police and the Navy, they can't succeed in that operation without giving good commendation to the Ministry of Agriculture for this budget that they have included in securing the livestock and other things in this budget. Right, Honorable Speaker, I won't bore this House, but I want to say that if you also check in the budget, you will understand that 158 billion plus for agriculture, for agri and livestock is an increase from what we have the previous budget. So it's a commendation to the government, and I want to say that as the Deputy Chairman of Agriculture Committee in this National Assembly, in House of Reps respectively, I want to commend the President for that, and I want to urge my colleague to give this bill a speed of light and pass it to the speed of light. Thank you, and God bless.
Mr. Speaker, I want to commend Mr. President for actually carrying out this constitutional obligation of actually taking care of the security and welfare of Nigerians through this budget of restoration. Last year, it was a budget of renewed hope. Now, budget of restoration, 4 key areas, Mr. Speaker. One is the security, that we have 4.91 trillion. Then that takes care of the security aspect of it. Then we now look at the education, 3.52, infrastructure, 4.06, healthcare, 2.48. Talk about welfare, I think Mr. President has demonstrated that he means business. Now, Mr. Speaker, the only area I want us to quickly look at, as the Deputy Chairman of Poverty Alleviation, I think Nigerians, after all this, what is next? We must reduce poverty. Again, I'm looking at what has been assigned to the Ministry of Humanitarian and Poverty Reduction and even the agency under it, the NCPA, considering all the programs under that agency, Mr. Speaker, I think 200 billion or 300 billion cannot do it. I think that is an area we are going to actually meet or encourage chairman on appropriations to help us look at so that we can see what will go there, because we are the people's representative. Then lastly, Mr. Speaker, we have to encourage Mr. President for being very aggressive when it comes to debt servicing. Now, when Mr. President came on board, we were using almost all our earnings for debt servicing. But today, we are using about 14 trillion. Mr. President has done so well, reducing our debt servicing, and he's still very aggressive about that. We must commend him, because if you look at our total earnings as projected of 34 trillion next year, and if we don't have a debt servicing of 16 trillion, just imagine if we add that to the 34, that is already 50 trillion. Imagine Nigeria actually doing their own budget without having to borrow. Mr. Speaker, I think we will be on the right path to prosperity one more time. That is why the budget of restoration has come to stay. And I encourage Mr. Speaker and my honorable colleagues to make sure we pass this with the speed of light, just like my honorable member said, Honorable Kelechi. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Very much.
The dignity of our economy to what it ought to be. Thank you for that contribution. Honorable Kalambina will speak now if he's in the House, followed by Honorable Tolani Shagaya, and then we have Ibrahim Al-Mustafa. I'll call these names. If you are here, just let me know. Is Tolani Shagaya here? Yeah. Is Ibrahim Al-Mustafa Aliyu here?
Is there?
Yes. Is Erufai is here. Cha Wen is here. Kem Kama is not here. Alex Mascot is here.
49 trillion as a proposed budget for the 2025. And I want to speak on 3 areas, or 2. That is issue of agriculture as well as defense. Although many have spoken about the issue of security and defense, particularly my humble chairman of defense, Honorable Bajimi Benson, I will not dwell into it. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, we must move from where we are yesterday and where we are today in terms of agriculture. What I mean by this is that we should focus on mechanized agriculture. And we cannot do this without putting emphasis for the purchase of agricultural inputs such as tractors and other agricultural input. And this, I believe, if we do so, we will improve our agricultural potentials.
The next to speak, let me just shift a little, but not following the list, to recognize some people from these 2 groups. Let me start with Robozana.
Your Excellency, I want to also contribute. One of my colleagues earlier mentioned about the Northeast Development Commission. Your Excellency, the establishment of the Northeast Development Commission is a little bit different with other commissions. Our situation is very, very complex, Your Excellency. In 2011 to 2015, about 16 local governments were under the control of Boko Haram. Then the commission was created. Your Excellency, at that time, the insurgency has created several negative impacts, like the economic impact. Markets were not there. Agriculture, which is the main activity of the region, is affected. Trade declined. And so also the local economy of the community was destabilized. Your Excellency, the Northeast Development Commission, as one of my earlier colleagues has mentioned, I don't know what parameter has been used to allocate these low resources to the Northeast Development Commission. It will also interest our members to know that during our recent visit to oversight visit to some state in the Northeast, we found out that the Northeast Development Commission is involved in constructing major bridges of the federal government, like the Gombe, Bauchi. We have 2 bridges that have collapsed. The Northeast Development Commission was constructing those bridges. Those bridges are very important in connecting the Northeast and other countries of Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. So the Northeast Development Commission should be regarded by the Appropriation Committee so that more funds will be allocated so that to carry out more jobs in the Northeast. We have to also commend the effort of the Governor Babagana Umara Zulum in rehabilitating, reconstructing, and rehabilitating all those affected. Up to now, there are 2 local governments in Borno State. Abadam local government, where the soldiers were there, but there are no authorities, there are no people. When you go to Guzamala local government, there are no people, there are no soldiers.
Honorable Bello Erufai, you have been promoted today. To God be the glory. You come and sit near our leader and tap wisdom.
So, Your Excellency, in supporting the budget to be read for the second.
Honorable Akala, can you appreciate him with a clap?
So, Your Excellency, I rise here to finally say that, Your Excellency, we need more funding in the Northeast Development Commission.
Mr. Speaker, though our time has been pegged for only 2 minutes, I'll try and summarize what I have of appropriation bill as presented by Mr. President yesterday. Tagging the budget, the situation we are in this country today, and having the budget of 49.7 trillion being the budget size, containing a lot of ambitious developmental projects, including the other sectors of security, education, agriculture. I think it is in the right direction. Mr. Speaker, while we are talking of the 2025 budget, I must hasten to remind ourselves of the position of the 2024 budget, which is in almost halfway of implementation at this stage. I believe we should push for its logical implementation by having high performances while moving into the 2025 budget, though it will take some months or weeks, I can say, going by the size, and then as we are going on little break, likely to come back on the onset of the new year. Mr. Speaker, sir, one important thing I must point out here is the issue of infrastructural development. Mr. Speaker, I want, or I may, on behalf of my constituency, Burusari, Gairem Yunusari, Federal Constituency of Yobe State, and by extension all Nigerians, appeal to the executive to declare state of emergency on the reconstruction of dilapidated roads across the nation. Mr. Speaker, while we are talking of new roads, we need to reconstruct those being used presently by the Nigerian citizens. Wherever you are going on all directions in this country, you will find failed roads that leads to loss of lives in most cases. This should be done immediately, Mr. Speaker. And I am suggesting, having put those regional commissions, development commissions for the 6 geopolitical zones, money or funds for the infrastructural development should be channeled as a matter of emergency for them to take up the reconstructions of all dilapidated roads across the nation. And the issue of security, we have been talking of security every now and then, and by budgeting almost 5 trillion for the security sector, I believe more should be done on this side, having all things being equal. I believe there should be an improvement, including recruitment of...
It appears that the chief whip is biased.
Sorry, sir. That's why I said the 2 minutes
You
is
should
too
have
small
used
for
your... Oh.
Mr. Speaker,
What is it,
sir.
because it's from Bono? Eh?
Lastly, sir, the issue of dollarization of our economy should also be considered, because this dollarization is really killing our economy, Mr. Speaker. Transactions, always we are talking about by tagging or paying $1,500 to a naira to $1 formally. I think, Mr. Speaker, this thing should be done, should be considered.
Thank you, Honorable Shekima.
No
I
hope.
think you have contributed enough. Thank you so much.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to start with the words of Captain Thomas Sankara. Sankara said, we must choose either champagne for a few or safe drinking water for all. Mr. Speaker, this budget before us chose the latter, safe drinking water for all. Why do I say so? Mr. Speaker, the budget has a recurrent expenditure of 14.1 trillion naira as against an aggregate capital for development of 17.8 trillion naira. That is 3 trillion naira or circa 4 trillion naira over the recurrent expenditure. It's the first in the history of this country. So it chose drinking water for all. Mr. Speaker, I listened to your vote of thanks. You took time to remind us that our budget is small, given our population. And I completely agree with you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, Honorable Dominic has given us a dollar equivalent of this budget. This budget is not only slim, it is very, very slim compared to 2024 budget. But the truth of the matter remains that the tailor cannot make your agbada or your etibo except with the size or quantity of fabric that was given to him. Honorable colleagues, we have to grow the pie. So I will align my thoughts with Honorable Leke that talks about revenue. So I'm going to speak on revenue.
Time up.
I'll speak on revenue, Mr. Speaker.
Please try to round up quickly.
Yes.
Try to round up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I speak on revenue. Let us look at gas revenue. The NLNG, as we speak, if you look at this budget, is contributing 776 billion naira. It can do over 1 trillion naira for us if indeed we'll develop our upstream sector. Let me end by saying that the NDC budget is quite slim, given that it covers 9 states. I think we should also improve the NDC budget to address particularly the environmental issues and, of course, the social impact of crude oil theft. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as I support this budget.
Honorable Mitema.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Mr. President, in keeping with Section 81, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, came before the joint session of the National Assembly to lay the budget. We welcome it, Mr. Speaker. And I want to commend you particularly for taking this quick action and allowing for legislative debate on the second reading of this bill. Mr. Speaker, I support the second reading of this bill with all the fiber in me, but I will make 1 or 2 little comments. I am aware of the fact that I have 2 minutes. I will end at 1 minute and 30 seconds. Mr. Speaker, to us from the Christian extraction, security is like seeking the kingdom.
We believe that if you seek the kingdom, every other thing will be added. So much has been said. Honorable Jah, Honorable Jimmy, and several other speakers. And therefore, I want to adopt their submissions as though they were mine. But by way of addendum, Mr. Speaker, let me also say that the prioritization of the 4 sectors by Mr. President is highly welcomed. The second that comes to mind after security, therefore, is the issue of infrastructure. Now, I want to submit with utmost loyalty that in implementing infrastructure, a proper scale of preference be drawn. There is no need, or there will be no excuse for us not to connect the rail lines to the Bayelsa, Rivers, Calabar, and the Akwa Ibom corridors. It is very key and it is very, very important to us. Mr. Speaker, having talked about the time, let me therefore align myself with the submissions just made by Cyril. Of course, they were earlier made by Leke on the issue of revenue. I adopt their submissions as though they were mine. There is need for us to expand our dragnet in terms of generating revenue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. President, is a request for the amendment of the 2024 Appropriation Act to extend its implementation period to 30 June 2025. And his message reads as follows. I write to forward to the House of Representatives a proposal for the amendment of the 2024 Appropriation Act to extend its implementation year from 31st December 2024 to 30th June 2025. This amendment, as reflected in the attached bill titled An Act to Amend the 2024 Appropriation Act, seeks to ensure the seamless execution of critical projects and programs contained in the 2024 Appropriation Act, which require additional time for completion. The proposed amendments affect the long title and Section 12 and the explanatory memorandum of the Act, substituting the expiration date of 31st December 2024 with 30 June 2025. While I trust that this request will receive the kind, expeditious consideration of the House of Representatives to ensure the smooth continuation of government programs, please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration and esteem. Yours sincerely, signed, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The second announcement is coming from the clerk. It is in the form of corrigendum, and this is the message he has for you. Said, I wish to bring to your attention a corrigendum regarding the composition of our parliamentary friendship groups. Following recent adjustments, the House has made the following changes. Honorable Idu Imeka, JP, remains the chairman of the Nigeria-Venezuela Friendship Group. Honorable Mani Meishinko Katami has been appointed as the chairman of the Nigeria-Ghana Friendship Group. I trust that the honorable members will discharge their duties in these capacities with utmost diligence and dedication. Thank you. The next announcement is coming from the media, the chairman media, and it reads as follows. I wish to bring to your attention an important engagement scheduled for this week. On Friday, from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., the Speaker and the leadership of the House will be participating in a media chat with the lead. Let me read it again, please. I wish to bring your attention to an important engagement scheduled for this week. On Friday from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., I, Mr. Speaker, will participate in a media chat with the leadership of the House and stakeholders across critical sectors. The chat will be aired on NTA and Channels Television. The focus of this program is to review the 2024 legislative year and render an account of stewardship to the Nigerian people. This is in line with our mantra, the People's House. I would like to extend an invitation to all members to tune to these two channels to view these programs. Thank you. The next announcement is coming from Right Honorable Ambassador James Shuaibu Barka, member representing Gombe Hong Federal Constituency of Adamawa State. And he wants to inform the members that today he is felicitating with his wife on their 32nd wedding anniversary. And he wants members to put them in their prayers, and those who have opportunity and time to visit them at home to celebrate with them. Congratulations, Ambassador. It's not easy to be married for 32 years. The next one is a message from Rev. Jeremiah Umaru, ACA, ACTL, member representing Akwanga, Nasarawa, Egon, Wamba Federal Constituency of Nasarawa State. He wants to inform the House that an award of the degree of Doctor of Philosophy has been awarded to him. I read his message. I write to notify Your Excellency and my honorable colleagues of the award of PhD in Business Administration, Faculty of Administration, Nasarawa State University, Kefi. I wish to appreciate the Honorable Speaker, other leadership of the House, Chairman Public Accounts Committee, and other honorable colleagues. Also, a special appreciation goes to my wife, Mrs. Sarah Jeremiah Umaru, and other family members for their support throughout the period of the program. Thank you. Signed, Rev. Jeremiah Umaru. Again, honorable members, I'm sure you're aware that we are dedicating most of our engagement today to debate the budget of 2025. So any member who may wish to contribute should please send his name to the clerk for us to recognize when the time comes. Thank you. Honorable colleagues, you may remember sometimes in June, we all agreed that we will sacrifice 50% of our salaries to support people with critical needs in the country. I'm pleased to announce that as of December, House has contributed the sum of 704 million naira, 704,907,578.82 million naira. This is the contribution honorable colleagues from this hallowed chamber were able to contribute within these 6 months. And it is our intention that on the 31st of this month, we shall be visiting Mr. President along with some members of leadership to hand over. So in fulfillment of this noble nature, I will lead a delegation of the House to present a check for this amount to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on 31st December 2024. This contribution highlights our steadfast dedication to the service of our nation and in response to critical needs of the Nigerian. Thank you, honorable colleagues, for your general contributions. May God bless you all. Move that we suspend our rules to delete from the order paper items item 11, item 12, item 11 and 12. Thank you.
That we suspend items 9 and 10 from the other paper in order to let us deal with the other business. I so move.
Rise to second the motion that we step down items 9 and 10 on the other paper. I so second.
Honorable colleagues, the business of the day is presentation of one bill, The first order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to amend the Appropriation Act to extend the implementation year from 31st December 2024 to June 30, 2025, and for related matters, standing in the name of the House Leader. Honorable members recall that the bill was read the first time on Thursday, 19 December 2024.
I rise to move that the bill for an act to amend the Appropriations Act 2024.
Sorry, I think you have to move for the suspension of our rule to enable us to take it immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that we suspend the relevant portion of our rules to enable us to take the order of the day. And what else? And that's all. Thank you.
Those in support of this motion should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it. House Leader, please can you move that the bill be read a second time?
A bill for an act to amend the Appropriation Act 2024 to extend the implementation of the capital component of the Appropriation Act 2024 from 31st December 2024 to 30th June 2025, and for related matters, HB 2023, be read the second time. I so move.
Colleagues, I rise to second the motion for the second reading of the amendment to Appropriation Act 2024. I so second.
Those against should say nay. The ayes have it. Honorable colleagues, this bill is a straightforward one. It is to enable us to extend the implementation of the 2024 budget to June to allow the federal government to complete all ongoing projects and the ones that are yet to start. I think without any waste of time, we can just go ahead and put the question. Those in support of this motion should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it. The second order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 49 trillion 740 billion 165 million 355,396 naira only, of which 4 trillion 435 billion 761 million. Order! Order! 925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 16 trillion 327 billion 142 million 689,549 naira only is for debt service. 14 trillion 123 billion 544 million 196,406 naira only is for recurrent expenditure, while the sum of 14 trillion 853 billion 717 million 110,517 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for Capital Expenditure for the year ending 31st December 2025, standing in the name of the House Leader. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Wednesday, 18 December 2024. I now invite the House Leader to move that it be read a second time.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that the bill HB 2021 be read the second time.
Those in support of this motion should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it. Leader, can you lead the debate?
Yesterday, we listened with rapt attention to the proposals presented to the joint sitting of the National Assembly on the 2025 appropriation bill. And I believe that we all left here very excited that for once we are seeing a government that has the courage to take very bold steps, the kind of courage needed to refocus, reposition the country for greatness, for inclusivity, and to ensure that there is balanced growth in all sectors of the economy. The president himself admitted that yes, things are tough. He feels the pains of Nigerians. And we all in this hall also feel the pains. However, you cannot cure certain diseases without taking very desperate and very fundamental steps. Growth and development do not come by wishing it. It comes by planning for it. And I think what that budget has done is to isolate...
Honorable Koko, please can you find your seats? Let us listen to the leader. This is a very important debate, please. We don't want any project in KB.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think what the budget has done is to isolate those critical areas that have far-reaching implications for other sectors of the economy. Education, for instance, we know the situation. Not only is NEL Fund going to continue to be funded, which has already reached out to hundreds of thousands of young students, but we're going to have enough funds to revitalize and reposition the education sector. Security is another. We know the implications of security for tourism, hospitality, for agriculture, industry, investments, foreign investments. And I believe that once you have that kind of courage and combine it with vision and with commitment, and you carry the necessary stakeholders along with you, like the President has done in carrying the National Assembly along, there will be no reason why we should not achieve our set goals in the budget. I know there are questions. Can we reduce inflation from 34.6 to 15% in 1 year? It is not impossible. It is not rocket science. It's been done before. It's by expanding the productive base of the economy, by creating jobs for our people, by providing security that enables farmers to return to work.
Kabezi, Honorable Husseini, Honorable Tajuddin, please can you move forward? Kabezi, we have promoted you to the position of acting deputy chief whip. Please come and take your seat here.
Mr. Speaker, I was saying that it is not impossible, but all we need to do is to ensure that we all contribute, our quota to the whole process of budgetary implementation. I also know that there are issues about the Naira, but the government has not been too ambitious. We pegged it at 1.5. And that is doable, is achievable, if the other parameters we put in place work. And if our security agencies work hard, and the FCC and ICPC and other related agencies continue to go after the hoarders and those who market and speculate on our currency. Mr. Speaker, the other sectors, we listened to the President expatiate on them yesterday. But the point I think I want to emphasize here is leadership. The kind of leadership you are providing for us here, the kind of leadership that your colleague is providing in the Senate, and the kind of leadership that the President is providing for the country. Leadership combined with courage will produce results, and it will ensure that all the parameters that have been well laid out in the budget are followed to the letter. It is not the size of a budget necessarily that brings the results, though that matters a lot. If there is sufficient money available to implement big projects that would encourage smaller ones to grow around it. But rather, it is the spirit and commitment to implementation, to monitoring, to evaluation, to cutting waste, to ensuring that planning discipline is reduced to the barest minimum. And I think the President gave a commitment to these issues in a speech to us in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, as leader of the House and the one that speaks on behalf of the government, I will say that this budget is very welcome. The focus is appropriate, the commitment is timely, and the buck has now been passed not just from the President, but to the National Assembly and to all Nigerians. The fact remains that if the budget will work or not work will be how Nigerians take the current challenges and contradictions they face.
Honorable J.C. Kamis, please can you be attentive? Otherwise, there will be no projects in your constituency.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Finally, let me say that if I will have another opportunity to talk later, but to urge my colleagues not to worry about, the size of the budget. It's almost twice the last one. This is a different year. It's a different world. There are crisis points all over the world. We're seeing it ourselves. And we need to be ready to flow, not just to the contradictions that arise from economic destabilization or political uncertainties or even climate change, but more to deal with issues that affect the average Nigerian. And I think President Tinubu has demonstrated that courage. He has demonstrated that focus. He has demonstrated that commitment. He has demonstrated that empathy and understanding of the realities that Nigerians face. Let us join hands to ensure that this budget delivers the goods and that Nigerians live a much better life than they're living right now. I would like to stop here and hope that I will have another chance to speak. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kafilat Obara to speak next.
I rise this morning to speak to the budget proposal presentation by a father, a leader, a mentor, and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who has presented to this hallowed chamber a budget of integration, a budget of consolidation, a budget that clearly depicts the level of the commitment of the economic team and Mr. President himself. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, this budget is coming at a very crucial time when our nation is navigating through economic recovery and, developmental challenges. And some have said that this budget is too ambitious or that it can trigger inflation. But this is a budget that clearly states its target of inflation reduction from 34% to 15%. So clearly this budget will be, working on its inflation rates for the nation. And of course, I also want to say that this budget also highlights its key economic goals, which will be stimulating growth, ensuring that infrastructure is more enhanced, and of course, to ensure that it promotes social welfare. And this is why the proposal of this budget has highlighted the three major areas, which is defense, security, which will be consolidating on the gains that we have gained from security challenges in the last 1 year. And of course, education, which is my own area of passion, because I have seen the, determination of Mr. President to ensure that all the children that are out of school gets back to school. And I'm more particularly, passionate about this because I know that the higher percentage of these children that are out of school are girls. And the health sector, investment in the health sector is going to contribute to sustainable development growth in this country. And majority of Nigerian women and children will benefit from this. I want to urge my colleagues that we should all approach this budget with a lot of collaboration, cooperation, and of course, we should use, positive thinking to criticize this budget. I believe that it's not enough to present a budget, but the implementation of the budget is more critical. So as representatives of the people in our various constituencies, and like I always say that Nigeria resides here, we all represent the grassroots in our various local governments, and of course the nation is here. We should get back home, get the contributions of our constituents, and look at the critical areas that are critical in our various constituencies, that concerns the peculiarities of the needs of our constituents, and ensure that in the long run of the passage of this bill, we should ensure that the needs of our constituents are integrated. I want to urge us, we should cooperate and ensure that this budget passes through. And most importantly, as representatives of the people, our oversight in the long run is very critical. We must do our oversight without fear or favor so that Nigeria can get to its desired destination. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I want to join my other colleagues and brothers and sisters who have set the tune for the debate of this particular budget. And I want to appreciate first the timely presentation and the factors in terms of what we are supposed to consider for the purpose of having the budget of next year. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I think what has been presented to us is quite very apt, and I want to urge my colleagues to support. First, it has to do with defense. We are all aware of the security challenges in our country, and the amount of money budgeted so far, I don't think there has ever been such kind of amount that has ever been done. And if properly utilized, I believe the security challenges in the Niger Delta will be a walkover, the one in the northwest, in the north-south, and the northeast, and the north-central, and the entirety of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I think Kafulat captured very well that we should, after passing the budget, follow and ensure that what is budgeted for, there is value for money. And until we have value for money, we may be missing the target. Education is one very key sector. Mr. President has done very well in terms of the budgetary provision, and I want to believe if properly utilized, we shall have another level. No nation rises above the quality and standard of its own education. So education is one very key area that I think Mr. President has paid attention to. Mr. President has also paid attention in the briefing given to us in the areas of agriculture. If you don't have food security, it's like as good as having a failed nation. I want to believe what has been presented to us and on the general principle is quite very okay for the country development and growth. And we should all support it. We should align to ensure that this budget is speedily passed so that we shall, by the grace of God, have the benefit of what we are supposed to have in terms of what should go to our various constituents and the nation. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I want to appreciate their leadership. I want to appreciate the leadership of the country for coming to the rescue in terms of the areas that have been highlighted so far. I mentioned agriculture, defense, education, health is one very good big challenge. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I was one of those that was faced with the challenge of kidney, gallbladder, that I had to be flew out of the country. I spent about 3 months, and I know that the tourism in the health sector is one very huge challenge that we have in the country, and this is one commendable area that I think the Mr. President have done so much. We have had the establishment of many federal medical centers. We have establishment of orthopedic centers, and we have the hospitals that are there. But I think what is lacking is the infrastructure and the funding that is supposed to be done. The trillions of naira that have been budgeted for, and then with the attraction or possibly interventions from the foreign communities and partners, I think if we properly situate it and place it well, we shall do well. And one other area is to ensure that the growth of our economy. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, I want to align and I want to support Hula and Sinka, what has been presented to us that we should support and we should speedily pass so that Nigerians will benefit and all of us will benefit. May God lead us well, guide us, and guide the leadership of our chambers and our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I so submit.